Okay, so I'm going to give you an instance.
Sure.
And it's not that I dislike dogs, I just never had one. So
Sure.
I'm a little leery around them. I'm not frightened, but leery. And I have people in my, where I live who walk around with dogs. Currently, not so many who know me. So they will come up to me with their dog and they'll say, don't worry about my dog. She's never or he's never bitten anyone. And that really irritates me because it makes me feel unsafe. I could be the first one.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to make any assumptions. But the other thing is they immediately say, oh, they love to be touched and petted. Now, you're saying this sets up a stressful situation for the dog because typically when they say they want to be petted, I'll lean down, and now you're saying that the dog is confused because I now seem dominant over their owner.
And them. You're
And
challenging
them.
the dog without meaning to or realizing it. It's very stressful for a dog. Versus
And even if he's not reacting.
Right. Most dogs will react. Well, they'll start to get, people term it excited. Stressed dog, hyper dog. Calm dog, secure dog. Okay.
So when they're all, that's stress.
That's stress. As much as people want to see it, oh, look how excited the dog's getting. And I have to tell you, my dogs, they're not aggressive in any way, shape, or form. When people approach, they're actually bored because they've been trained. They sit down and look at me like, is this going to take long? And then if after I've talked to a person, if the person wants to approach, then I allow them to do so. However, I got my dogs for my pleasure. I don't think everybody else should have to pay attention to my dogs. They're mine.
Yeah.
It's not fair to the dog, and it's not fair to other people.
Yeah.
And I have a very strong opinion about that. My biggest gripe is with children, okay? A big fallacy. Oh, if the dog's tail's wagging, it's friendly, go pet it. I have to tell you, a dog's tail wagging means the state of emotion the dog is feeling is exciting it. It doesn't mean it's friendly or happy. That dog could be ready to bite. And, children are eye level. Or another, misconception I hear people say is when the dog growls. Oh, the dog did it. A growl is a bite that did not connect. It doesn't mean it's a bad dog. That is the dog's language, and that's what I mean by communication. Understand it, know it, and deal with it. Okay? It is progressive. It starts off with a growl, lip goes up, air bite, connection. In the dog's mind, okay, this other dog's not getting my warning. I have to up the ante. They're just not getting it. And it will progress.
Wow. One of the things that you said is you never, ever touch the dog except in praise.
Absolutely.
So tell me about that, because we think, people are always touching their dogs.
Yes. Well, that's what we get dogs for. Let me just clarify. When I get a puppy, for example,
Yes.
a female dog, every dog, they don't age 7 years to R1. Between 6 and 9 months is where they hit the adolescent stage of the teenage years, if you will. Now, what that means is through adolescence, they have to test the boundaries to make sure they can't get away with anything. In a wolf pack, throughout adolescence, there is, at some point in time, a younger, stronger, more dominant wolf coming up the line. The survival of the entire pack is contingent on that one fact of the most dominant leading. Even though we've domesticated them, and regardless of the coat the dog wears, they are all pack animals. They all go through that adolescent stage to different varying degrees depending on the personality. Some are more dominant, some are more submissive. So a female dog is fully mature at 18 months. A male dog at 2 years, sometimes longer, depending on the size and the breed. Through adolescence is where I am very, very stingy with overpraising touch-wise with my dog. The reason being, it's always the subordinates who are submitting to the top dog. Now, once my dogs are fully mature and they know that type of interaction is a perk and not their right, and that's where all the difference in the world comes in. I'll lay on the floor with my dog now and I'll pet her for 4 hours, but she understands it's a perk and not her right, and that's the difference.
I'm not quite sure I followed the link. So when they're adolescents, you're saying you don't touch them unless it has to do with praise, and it's very specific and intentional.
Absolutely, because niceness is weakness through adolescence.
Okay, got it.
It's not that I'm telling a person to be mean to their dog. What a dog needs and desires most at that age and stage is boundaries, structure. They need to be reminded who's in charge on a daily basis. Okay, now once you've established that foundation, the result is for the next decade plus. But you have to set the foundation. Again, I don't mean to equate dogs to children, but kids go through their teenage, stage, and they're a little more willful and testing. And the difference is a dog's survival, even though we've domesticated them and they're in a home where their survival's not at risk, they don't understand that to be the case. They're a pack animal. I tell people, you have to treat your dog like the pack animal he is, to have him behave like the dog you want, so you can then treat him like the person you wish he was. But at that point in time, he knows it's a perk and not his right. We get our dog as a companion. Teach him what you want and expect from him, but in a way he understands. Training starts in the home. If a dog does not see their owners in charge in the house, they cannot see their owners in charge outside. So, for example, being up on the furniture and the beds teaches the dog it's equal to you if it's sharing your space. Letting the dog enter or exit a door first. One-word commands or behaviors are key. A lot of times people, and I was guilty of this before I got into training, I would tell my dog, sit, 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 sit. So the dog is being taught. I got 4 or 5 times before I really have to listen.
It's like children.
Well, yeah. And I tell people, my son's older and he's a good kid, but give me, 10 dogs any day versus 1 teenager. Dogs, once they're through adolescence, it's done. It's over, as long as you're consistent and repetitious.
What are the biggest mistakes people make? Because I really get, people, here's this little puppy, if they get a puppy, this little fuzzball, all you want to do is pet it and cuddle it and whatever.
Right.
And then people say, oh, yeah, why not let it on the bed?
Right.
So what does that cost them in the end? Because some people are fine. They, they repeat the sit, 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 sit 20 times, It annoys everybody else, but they're used to it.
Right. No matter how laid back a dog is, and even if they don't develop bad issues or behaviors or habits later, it's still stressful to the dog where they could have a much more comfortable, calm, happy life. The biggest misconception people have about my training is they cannot believe how much the dogs love it. It's actually fun. I get people to think like their dog. I actually get them inside the dog's head where you get to mess with the dog's mind, but in a good way. The dogs end up happier, more secure. The dogs, it helps. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do this book, because whether the dog's a puppy, a shelter dog, or whatever, these are questions my clients have asked me over the past 20 years. And the biggest misconceptions, the toys, the housebreaking, the place. What do I do with this dog when I have it in my house? Now what?
Yeah.
Because you can exercise it, run it, but what do I do in the home? And that's all the answers to those questions. Now, I always think, this is a foundation. I think formal training in whatever manner a person chooses is imperative to a dog's well-being overall. But, one of the biggest mistakes people make is spoiling the dog, which is what we get dogs for, before they've taught the dog that spoiling is a perk and not their right.
So you're saying you can spoil them once they know their place?
Yes. Now everything's a generalization. There's exceptions to everything. Nothing's an absolute with dogs. Now, for example, would a guard and protective breed, a German Shepherd, a Rottweiler, or a Terrier, those dogs are tough, dominant dogs. Now, it's an absolute with them. They should not be allowed on the furniture or the beds. Ever. Do you ever hear that saying, let a sleeping dog lie?
Yes.
Well, children
I was
especially.
wondering about that.
Children especially will go over to a dog to hug it, kiss it while it's sleeping. It is a defense reaction. It is survival for a dog to wake up defensive. They're being attacked by a predator. Shoot first, ask questions later. So I especially tell my clients with children, call the dog's name, just make sure it's awake first. So that goes hand in hand with when a dog's in a bed, somebody's turned and accidentally whacks or smacks a dog, you're in your sleep. The same issue holds true. The dog wakes up defensive until it can acclimate to the fact that it was sleeping, you're not a predator. It is a pack animal.
So it's really unfair to the animal to not follow the rules.
Yes. They cannot think like a human. They are not human. They're a pack animal. So that's why and where we do our dogs a disservice. Treat them like the pack animal they are. To teach them in a way they instinctively understand. For example, touch is praise. Even if the dog has a collar on, when you grab the collar, you've just touched that dog, you have just praised it. It confuses the dog and stresses it out. Versus a leash attached to the dog. Now, if the dog does something inappropriate, you grab the leash in a firm tone, no, and then you immediately follow up the bad behavior with the wanted behavior. So, for example, if a dog jumps, you get the leash, no, as soon as the dog's paws, land on the ground, good boy. It's that quick.
And then you can touch him.
Then you can touch him. Little pat on the head. They just got praised. That's how quick a dog is. That's how they learn. Or I'll have people tell me, oh, I came home today and the dog got into the garbage and the dog knew it did something wrong. Well,
Yeah, let's talk about that. I hear that a lot.
well, usually the dog is responding to the owner's body language. Uh-oh, this dog's mad at me. I better show submissive body language. Not making the connection.
They don't know why.
No.
Okay, so then what do you do if you come home and they've strewn the garbage all over the place and eaten up your furniture?
Right, and again, that comes from one of three